Forest Lodge isn't just a house. It's the kind of estate that makes people stop mid-sentence when they hear about it. Hidden deep inside Windsor Great Park, the property looks like something out of a modern-day fairy tale. Tennis courts tucked into perfectly manicured corners, a private lake that reflects the sky like glass, and more bedrooms than most luxury hotels. 8 to. And what drove Meghan up the wall wasn't just the praise Catherine received. It was the fact that she wasn't even competing. Catherine wasn't fighting for attention. She wasn't chasing the narrative. She was just existing. And somehow, that alone was enough to win. In the end, Forest Lodge became more than bricks and ivy. It became a scoreboard. On one side, William and Catherine, settled, respected, thriving. On the other, Harry and Meghan, scrambling, explaining, stuck in a cycle of comparison they couldn't seem to break. For Harry, the estate was a painful reminder of the world he left behind. For Meghan, it was the dream home turned ghost story, haunting every step of her California life. And for Catherine, it was simply home, a quiet power move that didn't need defending. The brutal truth: you can't build a fairy tale on envy. You can't win a perception war with noise when your rival's silence speaks louder than words. Forest Lodge wasn't just a purchase. It was the quiet, sprawling reminder that in the battle of image versus impact, Catherine had already won. So what does Forest Lodge really represent? Not just wealth or privilege, but the power of perception. William and Catherine turned a house into a symbol of stability, grace, and modern royalty. Meghan and Harry, by contrast, turned it into an obsession, a story that slipped through their fingers and exposed the cracks in their narrative. Lodge, in her mind, wasn't just a home. It was a stage, a symbol that she could play the royal game and win at it. But that dream evaporated fast. When Meghan later discovered that Catherine was the one moving in, it wasn't just about real estate. It wasn't even about losing out on a beautiful house. It was about watching someone else live the exact scenario she once imagined for herself. And the sting wasn't quiet. Insiders claim Meghan's reaction was anything but subtle, and that the news struck her like a personal betrayal. Because in Meghan's world, Forest Lodge wasn't simply a house with sprawling gardens and manicured lawns. It was supposed to be her statement, her declaration that she belonged. Instead, it became Catherine's effortless flex, and that twist was brutal. Here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Catherine didn't just buy Forest Lodge. She did it in a way that rewrote the rules of royal perception. For years, the public had been skeptical of lavish spending by the royal family, with endless debates about taxpayer money-funding palaces and renovations. But this time, Catherine and William didn't lean on the crown. They didn't ask for allowances. They didn't negotiate with the institution. They just signed the check themselves. Their money, their choice, their home. That single detail, paying with private funds, landed like a thunderclap. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the size of the estate. It was about responsibility, independence, and a kind of understated authority that Meghan and Harry never managed to pull off. Catherine didn't need to go on a podcast to justify it, didn't need a glossy documentary to explain it. She let the purchase speak for itself, and the public loved it. The headlines framed her as the picture of grace. No drama, no fuss, just a future queen quietly settling into a property that fit the role perfectly. It was the kind of power move that didn't require a soundbite. Catherine didn't need to say a word. Her actions made the statement louder than any interview ever could. Meanwhile, Meghan's past attempts at curating the perfect image, multi-million-dollar renovations at Frogmore Cottage, the sprawling California mansion, Netflix tie-ins, suddenly looked louder, flashier, and far less effective. Catherine's silence made Meghan's noise stand out even more, and that's what cut the deepest, because in the world of royalty, sometimes saying less is the ultimate flex. The moment Catherine's move became public, Forest Lodge stopped being a property and started living rent-free in Meghan's mind. Insiders claim she couldn't let it go. Every detail, from the square footage to the interior upgrades, allegedly became a trigger. Renovation requests filed by William and Catherine, Meghan was reportedly picking them apart. The kind of drapes chosen, she wanted to know. Even the fireplaces, yes, the fireplaces were rumored to be a point of fixation. It wasn't just curiosity, it was comparison. Sources say Meghan began measuring every inch of Forest Lodge against her own Montecito mansion. Bedrooms, bathrooms, acres of land, even the layout of the gardens. All of it became part of an ongoing scoreboard she couldn't stop tallying. What stung even more was how effortlessly Catherine seemed to handle it all. No Instagram posts hinting at renovations, no Netflix behind-the-scenes featurettes, just quiet, private updates that somehow reached the press anyway, and always painted Catherine in the best light. Each new headline about the Wales family's elegant upgrades reportedly sent Meghan deeper into frustration. again. And here's the kicker. Instead of moving on, Meghan allegedly began channeling that envy into brainstorming sessions. Titles were floated: The Royal Home That Got Away, How I Almost Became the Queen of Windsor, Netflix miniseries ideas that turned her housing heartbreak into a storyline. In her mind, Forest Lodge wasn't just Catherine's home, it was her stolen opportunity, her white whale. But obsession has a way of spiraling, and while Meghan was stuck in comparison mode, Harry was unraveling in his own way. If Meghan was spiraling into obsession, Harry was spiraling into regret. According to insiders, he couldn't stop replaying the what ifs. What if they'd stayed in the UK a little longer? What if they'd played by the firm's rules instead of breaking away? What if they had landed Forest Lodge instead of watching William and Catherine stroll through its gardens, with applause echoing behind them? Harry's frustration wasn't loud in public, but behind closed doors, it was relentless. Reports describe him pacing around Montecito, muttering lines like, "It should have been us. They always get everything." Friends say he's turned it into a kind of mental scorecard. Catherine gets a mansion, Meghan gets lifestyle clips, William gets rising approval ratings, Harry gets another Netflix project the world shrugs at. To Harry, Forest Lodge wasn't just a house. It was a reminder of everything he left behind, a sprawling, historic estate filled with prestige, compared to his current reality of podcast deals, streaming experiments, and headlines that rarely land in his favor. The imbalance was obvious and brutal, and the more he stewed over it, the more tension reportedly grew at home. Meghan fixating on Catherine's curtains and kitchen islands, Harry stuck in a loop of resentment disguised as reflection. Together, they weren't just irritated, they were haunted. Haunted by a house that never even belonged to them. But while Harry replayed the past, Meghan decided to plot the future. If there's one thing Meghan has mastered, it's the art of turning setbacks into storylines. And Forest Lodge was no exception. Insiders claim that instead of letting go, she began sketching out ways to flip the narrative. Storyboards, pitches, even working titles were allegedly tossed around. A Netflix miniseries about historic homes that shaped history, with the Sussexes' housing journey at the center. A tongue-in-cheek docuseries comparing palaces to California mansions, casting her as the voice of modern royalty. It wasn't satire, it wasn't parody, it was strategy. If Catherine's silence was going to dominate the headlines, Meghan wanted to fight back with content, polished, cinematic, carefully curated. Forest Lodge might have slipped away in reality, but she could still claim it in story form. But there was one problem. The internet wasn't buying it. Every new idea was met with rolling eyes, with critics pointing out the obvious. Every time Catherine made a graceful move, Meghan answered with noise. And noise, no matter how glossy, never outshines silence. Here's where the contrast hit hardest. While Meghan brainstormed docu-series pitches and spin strategies, Catherine was busy doing nothing flashy. Renovating, decorating, strolling the grounds with her children. No leaks to the press, no veiled comments in interviews, just quiet living. And yet, that silence echoed louder than any podcast or Netflix contract ever could. The public noticed. Approval ratings climbed. Commentators began calling her the image of modern monarchy. Every photo of Catherine casually sipping tea in the gardens of Forest Lodge played like a mic drop. Each headline praising her understated elegance only added fuel to Meghan's frustration.